What is going on, everybody? It is me again. It is HorrorFan34, and welcome to another video, and welcome to, once again, another convention recap video. So this time, my convention recap will be for New Jersey HorrorCon up in Edison, New Jersey, a couple weekends ago in August this month. Always a great time going to the show. It's a much more smaller show compared to a lot of the other shows I've gone to, but it's a lot more smaller. It's very laid back. So I figured I'd make the trip up there again to get 3 people that I wanted and things like that. So enough of me rambling on. Let's just get on to the people that I met. The only thing I got from the vendors were 3 protective, like 8x10 sleeves, because I needed some sleeves for my Melissa Barrera autograph, my Tony Revolori autograph, and my photo op photo with Robert Englund, because I didn't have any sleeves for them. So I was able to grab 3 of them at the New Jersey HorrorCon. So that's really the only thing I really bought from the vendors this time around. So without further ado, let's get on to the guests that I met. The first person that I met was Kelly Maroney. I mean, all of you know her from Night of the Comet. That's mainly her top thing that she's really known for, with her and Catherine Mary Stewart. But she's also been in Chopping Mall, and of course, but I really wanted to get her on Fast Times at Ridgemont High, where she played Cindy, Judge Reinhold's girlfriend, who was the cheerleader. So I really wanted to add her on my Fast Times at Ridgemont High DVD. Kelly was a definite sweetheart, really, really nice lady. I talked to her for quite a while because she had like no line at all and things like that. So me and her were talking about it was just kind of cool, like how we were talking about like how she how DVDs and all that stuff are extremely rare, how some of them are very rare and things like that. I was telling her like all the out of print stuff that I have in my collection, and she was like asking me like what they go for, and we were even talking about like video games, about like how some video games are more pricier than others, and I was telling her how I have a couple of PS1 games that are pretty pricey, and how some of them are the cheap ones because they're not, you know, rare. And so it was kind of a cool conversation, just talking about like out of print stuff. So that was really our, like, at least for 5 minutes or so, that was like our whole conversation, was just talking about like valuable out of print items and things like that. And so she was really, really surprised that someone brought up Fast Times at Ridgemont High, because I guess not a whole lot of people bring up that movie to her, because mainly a lot of Night of the Comet people or Chopping Mall people. So she signed my DVD for me, and one of the things that I loved the most about Kelly was she really wanted to make sure that your photo came out really, really nice. She took like multiple photos with you and wanted to make sure she got it right, and wanted to make sure you were happy with it. She probably took at least, I don't know, like 20 or so photos with me, and the guy was like snapping a bunch of them for us, and Kelly wanted to make sure it turned out right and the lighting was okay and things like that. So if I could talk right. So just an overall fantastic experience, and I'm really glad that I was able to get Kelly Maroney. So hopefully one day I can get Catherine Mary Stewart next. So here is my picture with me and Kelly Maroney. And here's a picture of Kelly Maroney signing my Fast Times at Ridgemont High DVD. And her autograph on it. Okay, guys, moving on to the next person. The next person that I met was Ken Foree. I mean, what more can be said about Ken Foree that hasn't been said before? The original Dawn of the Dead, and Leatherface Chainsaw Massacre 3, and Kenan and Kel as Kenan's father. I mean, what can the Rob Zombie's Halloween, and just a countless amount of other stuff. But I had a really, really cool item for Ken Foree to sign it. He really, really got a really big kick out of it. I have a copy of Grand Theft Auto San Andreas for the old Xbox, and I still play it to this day. It's my favorite Grand Theft Auto game. And Ken Foree actually had a voice in it as a random pedestrian. And the way I found that out was I typed in Ken Foree GTA San Andreas, and all of a sudden the first thing that popped up was Ken Foree's, Twitter or X account, whatever you want to call it. And it said, do you remember the time where I voiced a pedestrian in Grand Theft Auto? And he showed a clip of his voice recordings of the pedestrian from Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. So I was like, ooh, like I wonder how he's gonna react if I bring up like my big Grand Theft Auto San Andreas poster and all that stuff. And he like absolutely loved it. He's like, GTA baby, and even his agent, his handler, was talking about like, oh my god, like what a really nice looking poster. And after Ken Foree signed it, the handler was even saying like, wow, that is a beautiful piece right there, and things like that. And so when it came time to take the photo with me and Ken Foree, Ken Foree like looked over at me, and I quoted, and then he smiled at me, and I gave him we fist bumped, and I said to him, that car was just sanitized. And that's one of his quotes that he says as the pedestrian when you carjack him as CJ. And Ken Foree was just laughing his ass off, and his agent was laughing his ass off, and the people that were behind me were laughing their ass off. So I can definitely tell Ken Foree had a really, really good time with me. The fact that I brought up Grand Theft Auto San Andreas to him, so I can tell he really, really got a kick out of that. So that's what I'm saying. You always have to bring out rare stuff to celebrities. They always love it. So, and this is another huge exception to the deal. So, here is my picture with me and the legendary Ken Foree. And here's a picture of Ken Foree signing my poster. And his autograph on it. Okay, guys, moving on to the last person that I met. This was easily another one that I had to get. This guy was at a previous show I went to a couple years ago at Oaks, Pennsylvania, but I passed on him because by that time I was already getting Marley Shelton, Tom Noonan, and Robert Brian Wilson. But once they announced him for this show, I wanted to add him to my Hills of Eyes Blu-ray, and it's another big one for the Blu-ray. So the last person I met was Michael Bailey Smith, and of course all of you know him as Pluto from the remake of the Hills of Eyes. He was Super Freddy in Elm Street 5, and he's been in just look him up. He's been in a lot of stuff over the years, but of course I got him on the Hills of Eyes, and I'd probably say Michael was probably my favorite meet of the whole show. He was such a nice guy, really down-to-earth guy, very talkative, and was telling you a bunch of stories. And I mean, like the people that were in front of me, like when I was next in line, he just like stood in front of the table and waited for me, and he like greeted me. He shook my hand. He like grabbed my hand and shook my hand and things like that. And I handed him my Hills of Eyes Blu-ray, and I said to him, "You'll be the third person on here." And he was like saying, "Whoa, you got Emily and Vanessa on here," and he was like asking me about them and things like that. And it's just a really, really nice guy. And he was telling me a lot of really cool back behind the scenes stories on the Hills of Eyes. And one funny one, he was talking about how the film In the Desert, it was actually shot in Morocco, which I never even knew about. So he was talking a lot about that and things like that. He was actually telling me how hard it was for him to do the scene where, I'm not going to say what it is, but it's the scene where with Emily DeRaven in the Hills of Eyes, what Pluto's doing to her. And he said he had a really tough time trying to do that because he felt so terrible doing it to her because, and he said he thinks the world of Emily and things like that. So I thought that was a really nice thing to say. And he was telling me a really funny story as well about how while they were driving in a car, like the crew and everything, they were going to go ready to shoot another scene in a different set in the desert, and he was sitting in the front seat of his car, and all of a sudden he was telling me about how this flock of sheep was crossing the street, and he saw like this guy with a staff, and the you know, kind of like a guy that is like leading the herd of sheep and everything, and he saw Michael Bailey Smith in makeup as Pluto in the movie, and the guy like threw, and he was telling me how the guy threw the staff up in the air, and he was running toward the village, warning everybody that there was a monster and things like that. So pretty funny story right there. Michael Bailey Smith is a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of information. Tells you a lot of cool stuff. And speaking of Andrew Dice Clay, he got to work with Andrew Dice Clay on Whatever It Takes, which I have over here from Vinegar Syndrome, which I thought was cool. And he was telling me a little bit about working with Dice, and just an overall really cool guy. I mean, if he's ever at a convention, definitely go up to him. And he's a really, really tall guy too, well over 6 foot, very tall person. So here is my picture with me and Michael Bailey Smith. And here's a picture of Michael Bailey Smith signing my Hills of Eyes Blu-ray. And his autograph on it. I was a little nervous where he was signing it because he was trying to squeeze it in between Vanessa and Emily. But the way he squeezed it in was perfect. It was like perfection. The way he was able to squeeze it in there was just perfection. So here's his autograph. And that is pretty much it, everybody. That is the entire convention recap. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. You guys take care.